This is a video training for residential program directors and lead staff on how to review and proof medication administration records and the necessary documentation for individuals in our residential programs. The first thing I want to remind you is that the RX must equal the label, which must equal the MAR directions. It's a simple formula for success. RX equals label equals MAR. I want to talk first about how we proof MARs for putting them into place the upcoming month. They will come pre-printed from the pharmacy, but it will only contain what was in the computer prior to that date. Also, if you did not submit corrections to the pharmacy from the previous month, it will continue to perpetuate erroneous orders that are not correct. And we get notices of non-compliance. Our staff do not know what directions to follow, and they have no idea if they're not correct. And that comes back to us as the leadership. What we have in place, for example, April 1st, for the very first MedCat pass, needs to be completely correctly proofed so that we know that those directions, starting on the very first day of the month, on the very first medication, are correct. And there's an easy and simple way to do that. The first thing is that when you get your new MARs printed, you do one individual at a time, and you schedule a day to do that. If it requires you, for some reason, 2 or 3 days to do that, you have medical appointments, you can only do 3 individuals one day, 3 individuals the next day. You operate a 6-bed group home, boom, you're finished. Let's say you operate a group home with more individuals. An example would be the 2 Gillette group homes. Then you can again divide that up. Or you can crank them all out in one day. You need to put it on your calendar and schedule. If you look at the schedule I send out to you all every month, and I do this task in the ICF group homes, where it is still assigned to nursing, and in multiple counties, I have that on my calendar. Doctor's orders, Cape Coral, a certain day. Doctor's orders, Country Meadows group home, a certain day. You need to plan that. And when you have that planned, then you know that unless there's an emergency, you are not scheduling any medical appointments that day. And it needs to happen that way. We need to devote the time to be accurate, and we need to stop getting notices of non-compliance, or worse yet, medication errors, that our individuals have the right to receive their medications free from error. And that starts and stops with a correct medication administration record. So remember that the RX equals the label equals the MAR directions. We're going to set the RX aside for a minute, and we're going to talk about the quick first way that you proof an MAR. And what you do is you take the new MAR for Tommy Weissong for April 1st, and you sit and you match it. Every single entry from top to bottom. You finish that page, you go to the next page until you have finished. In that case, you will be very clear to put or correct a different time. If something is given one time a week, to box out that specific week and X out the days they're not given. Or you can use arrows, box it out, draw an arrow to the next Tuesday they're supposed to get it, box it out, draw the next arrow. They get something one time a month, same process. Someone got a new prescription since it was proofed last time. You are going to be adding that to this upcoming MAR. This is what prevents us from losing that cream that was started, that eye drop was started, that antibiotic that wasn't quite finished and needs to be carried over to the following month. So you are also looking for hand-corrected or new entries, so that the April 1st MAR matches the March MAR. If something was discontinued, if an order was changed, and you still see it printed out by the pharmacy, you are going to write discontinued or order change, see below, and you are going to make sure that the new directions are carried over or handwritten in on the April MAR. So that is the first and beginning of it all. And you systematically go down the page. What I normally do with the new MAR is when I find it, I put a check mark next to the medication on the old MAR. And as I go down, I can check and see that I found what I need. Some people put it on the new MAR. That's okay. You can put a little check mark to the left margin because you found the order for Depakote and it matched. You found the order for the Tegretol and it matched. Oh, you found the order for the new triamcinolone cream and it matched. Oh my goodness, the eardrops were completed and discontinued. You can put a check mark next to that and you can write in the broad section, discontinued, and your initials. You maybe get down 2 or 3 pages and you find a new drug that was started. Then you can add that and carry it over the number of days that it needs to be given, or for the entire month if it's a change in a routine medication. That's where you start. Once you have finished that, anything that does not have a check mark in the left margin, you know you need to look further. And one of the things you're going to look for is the copy of the prescription that you must have on file, because the RX equals the label equals the medication administration record. That's when you say, oh, there was a change here. I need to make sure the label on the medication matches that. I need to make sure what the prescription says. This also includes any entry where the date on the prescription on the MAR is older. So let's say you see that the Depakote prescription says it was ordered April of 2015. You know that no prescription is good for more than a year. Right then, you know that you need to look for that prescription and see if you need to go back to the doctor, get a refill order, or perhaps our pharmacy got an automatic refill order and either failed to send it with a delivery, which sometimes happens, or they sent it and it got lopped in with some paperwork or thrown away in the bag because all the staff was interested in was getting the new drug. So you need to make sure that you have a prescription for each medication on the MAR, and it needs to be a current prescription. So let me repeat once again what you're doing. More than 30 days. I mean, give yourself a couple of days to do this. So you are going to put on your schedule and devote the time to proof and make sure that the upcoming MARs are fully correct. And you are going to do that by comparing this month's MARs item by item with a check mark in the left-hand margin to make sure that everything matches. You are going to hand write in any corrections that are necessary. You are going to make sure that you identify specific days that something is supposed to be done. If I get a special shampoo on Tuesdays and Fridays, then you're going to box out Tuesdays and Fridays. If I get that extra vitamin E tablet, the extra one, every Monday, you better box out every Monday. Staff deserve and require the special directions to be accurate. That's our responsibility. I admit that they can and should be reading each entry, and if it says Tuesdays and Fridays, they should only be doing it on Tuesdays and Fridays. But let's be honest, we're getting those notices of non-compliance. Somebody got their entire month worth of special vitamin E, which is supposed to be every Monday, the first 4 days of the month, and that was not very long ago. Again, because there was no specific instruction. So you want your MARs to be proofed and be correct, so that when they are put into place at the very beginning of the month, I also don't want to receive phone calls. None of us should be receiving phone calls from third shift staff or the morning medication administration technician because they come on duty the first day of the month and cannot find an MAR to chart on. And this is happening. It is happening. We need to own that, and we need to be sure that these are put into place, that the old MARs are removed from the MAR book on the last day of the month at midnight. Third shift can easily do that and put in the new MARs. The first thing on April 1st, I shouldn't have staff calling and saying, I don't know where to initial it. Should I use the March MAR because I don't have a new one for next month? And then we're all scrambling. That's especially difficult if we're scrambling on a weekend. But that's just unacceptable. The state laws and the federal laws have a simple statement. Individuals have the right to receive their medications free from error. It doesn't say except when, or but if, or only if. There's a reason why licensure technicians come in every calendar month and spend so much time pulling a certain percentage of individuals' MARs and looking for us to be accurate. If you remember and reflect back on your zero tolerance training, this is a zero tolerance. It can be a medical neglect issue, and it can be abusive, which is very rare, but it definitely is defined as neglect. So let's be careful. We aren't making the time and devoting our schedule. We all have crazy schedules. I know that. We all have a bazillion things to do at once and wish we were an octopus, or at least had some clones. But this is something you must be perfect on. And the law requires us to be as perfect as possible. And we cannot do that if we don't avoid distractions. I'm sorry, avoid destruction. That's pretty funny. And if we don't devote the time that we need to do this. So that's the first part of this presentation, is matching the upcoming MARs and correcting them with the old MARs so that you have everything in place and you have continuity. So I still am going to receive my medication at 8 in the morning and 8 at night. And I'm still going to carry over my antibiotic that was ordered 5 days ago at the end of the month. That I'm still going to get this cream or not if it was discontinued. There's nothing worse than getting a non-compliance notice because staff initialed for a medication that we didn't even have in the house, or a cream that was applied that we were completely out of, or that was discontinued but we kept initialing it because it was on the MAR. Now that's a whole separate issue about staff performance, but oh my goodness, talk about waving a red flag. Okay, so that concludes the first part of this presentation. The second part is about proofing, or maybe proofing's not the right word. I should say reviewing your client medication records throughout the month. Let's not wait for APD to come in and pull someone's medication record randomly, which they do, and look at the changes and look to see if we're accurate or we're making errors or not. The first thing I want to remind you is there can never be any holes on an MAR. So when you see a blank space, you're stopping and you're doing research. You have a medication error of some kind, even if it's just a documentation error. And we need to take care of those in a timely manner. If you notice that a medication wasn't started, or you're looking to see if everything is going along through the month the way that it should be. It shouldn't have been APD that found us signing 18 days that we gave a medication that had been discontinued the previous month. To be honest with you, not only should staff have caught that, but so should have the manager. So remember that you are spot checking your MARs. Sunrise says twice a week, minimally once a week. You need to be spot checking your medication administration records. If you see something that jumps out at you that it's incorrect charting, they didn't chart the first 3 doses of a new antibiotic or a new medication on the back of the MAR, stating that they saw no side effects, that they didn't chart a PRN correctly. These are things that we can fix. We can go back and document. At the same time, you must be spot checking the medications. So if you go to give a medication and you see that the package for 3 days ago for the morning meds is still in place, it was torn off, but it's sitting in the bottom of the box, and we've all experienced that, then we have to start finding out why that medication wasn't given. And staff need to be reminded that even a client refusing a medication, that any time a medication cannot be given, it is charted by circling the initials. What happened is written on the back of the MAR, and that any medication that could not be given for any reason is a med error report. It's a GER. So once again, the more that we can find and correct, not cover up, find and correct, the better off we are. Notices of noncompliance require med error reports often, and those med error reports means we're not finding our own issues and trying to be better at what we do and correct our own issues. I really dislike that the state called it a medication error report. What they meant was some kind of error occurred with an individual's medication, not that we necessarily made a mistake. So it might be that someone came home from a home visit and the medications were not given by the parents. It means something happened with medications, and we need to state what happened and what we did about it. And they actually protect us. So never think that a medication error or a GER report about a medication error is necessarily a bad thing. Even if we're in the wrong, it says we did this, we tried to fix it this way, we're going to learn from it this way to prevent it from happening again. So that is why you need to be continually, randomly, on a round-robin basis, proofing your MAR books and your MARs and looking at your meds throughout the month. You need to make sure that your controlled substances are on double lock and key, and we keep getting hammered for holes on our narcotic count forms. There can't be any. And we need to discipline staff, and you need to be checking for that on a regular basis. If they're on alone, they can write NA in the box or NSC, no shift change. They can't write nothing. They can't put a hash mark. And that needs to occur, that count needs to occur at the beginning and ending of every shift. It is not related to when medications are given. It is not done when meds are given. That's when the inventory sheet is signed out. So keep in mind, beginning and ending of shift, and we are going to have to reinforce that. That takes all of us. Okay. So once again, I want to talk about the fact that changed doses and discontinued orders or incorrect labels will be returned to the pharmacy, and they need to be fixed. If you proof your MAR for the upcoming month and it has corrections or changes on that, you need to fax it to the pharmacy for their attention so they can correct the computer program. We very often, we talk about this with the pharmacies, and they're very clear. They don't get it back. So they don't know to fix it, and another 20 or 30 days goes by, and the MAR still has an error on it. And maybe that month we don't catch it. Remember that on the prescriptions, you will review the MAR page for each individual, not only with the previous month's MARs, but to check the prescriptions. The RX equals the label, which equals the MAR. Each routine medication has to state the reason for it, not some fancy diagnosis, the reason for it on the prescription and on the MAR. There can be no decision making by staff. There can be no variables. It can't be 1 or 2, every 3 or 4. Everything must be very specifically stated so that staff know exactly when to do something and exactly what it's being used for and what they should be looking for. Remember that if dose times are assigned incorrectly, very rarely does a prescription on a doctor's order tell you the exact time of day. It says take at bedtime. Well, what is your bedtime? So remember that if the medication time frames do not match the lifestyle of the individual or when they leave for day program, that you as an RPD can change that. And once again, you want to send that correction to the pharmacy in a fax so that from now on it's 7 a.m. instead of 8 a.m. Start and stop dates or specific days of the week or month are clearly boxed. That there are, again, no variables in the directions. No prescription can say apply to affected area. It must be specific. It can't say affected ear because once the medication's working, maybe there's nothing to see. So it has to say exactly where to apply it, exactly what ear to put the drops in, exactly what eye, exactly what pimples to put the Clearasil on. It must be specific, okay? So I want to remind you, do not walk out of a doctor's office ever, or a walk-in clinic or an ER, with a prescription that says to affected area. We get in trouble every time. PRN medications must have clear directions and the reason for use, with a maximum number of doses within a 24-hour period and when to seek medical attention from a physician. Special information or treatments, you must have a prescription that states those guidelines. The ones we're most commonly doing are blood pressures. If someone takes a medication for blood pressure and we have an order or a prescription to check blood pressures once a week or daily, there must also be a prescription from the physician on file stating what those numbers mean, that they want to be notified when it's above 160 or below 90. It has to tell you what to do with that number, and that must exist. The same thing's true for finger sticks for blood sugar tests. So that needs to occur for any special instructions or treatments. So it's what readings or number results require the physician to be notified or not. All right, mixing medicine in fruits or puddings or any kind of drink or altering it any way or crushing a medicine, you'll never have to cut it in half because the pharmacy will send it already cut in half. Those directions must be written clearly on a prescription and clearly stated on the MAR. So when you're reviewing the RX to match the label, to match the MAR directions, you're looking for all instructions to match. I have to say that every single month as I'm proofing the MARs, I'm not always having to look at every prescription. Unless it's a refill or a new prescription, it should say the same thing it's always said. So again, look at what the date of the prescription is and if it's a new order, and then you want to go back and match the prescriptions. Prescription refill numbers don't necessarily have to match so much sometimes, but when one doesn't match, that's kind of a clue. I know that you have seen me come in and do audits, and then I look and I say, oh my goodness, it says the order was 3/15/15 and we're already in March. Where's the new order? I call the pharmacy, and a lot of times they just fax it or send it. We file it, we're kosher. But remember that a lot of our doctors want to see the clients every 3 or 4 months. That's how they get paid better under Medicaid or Medicare, and that's a problem for us. Also remember that it's a problem for us that we get those prescriptions written the way that the 65G07 laws, legislated laws, state they must be written, with the reason and the clear guidelines and no affected areas. We go back in for the appointment 4 months later, and the doctor writes the prescription the way that he could send it home with any of the rest of us, and then we've got that work to do all over again. We are currently in the process of using a form that you can get signed once a year from the physician, listing the reasons and the affected areas, and we've done that on a trial basis in Tampa. So far it's been accepted by APD and Delmarva, so hopefully I have passed that along, and so hopefully your supervisor has given you a copy of that form. Let me know if not. You have to assure that the controlled substance count forms are correct going through the month, the shift-to-shift count forms. So just be sure about that. I want to remind you that we kind of don't do math, that controlled substances go for, and you can only get 30, will always go from 30 down to 0. So when you get a new delivery, it's going to be a new form for when that prescription is actually started, but you're going to be counting it on this month form. So you might have 5 pills plus 30, and then 4 pills plus 30, and then 3 pills plus 30, and then 2 pills plus 30, and then 1 pill plus 30, and then 30, 29, 28. Keep those prescriptions separate, because those pills get tracked as a separate inventory for each 30-day prescription, and you can only receive a maximum of 30 pills of any controlled substance at any time. Off-site custody forms, you need to be checking for those. So an off-site custody form must be filled out. We need to count out the meds going out the door, and we need to count the meds coming back in the door, and they cannot be blank. With our new multi-dose packs, oftentimes you can tear off, Friday night, Saturday morning, Saturday night, Sunday morning. You know your individual comes back with 0. But he also came back with 1 bottle of eye drops and 1 tube of a special cream, or maybe an inhaler. And so you're going to get 0 back. It still has to say 0. There's no assumptions made. There can be no blank places on any required APD form that the legislature has mandated by law. I want to repeat, by law, not Sunrise, not you, not me, that must be completed. Okay, so those are some quick reminders. We do have a medication administration record monitoring sheet. We're supposed to have RPDs turn those in at every management meeting, whether that's a management meeting every 2 weeks, whether that's a management meeting weekly. And you initial and you are checking the MAR for the items that the legislated rule of law states must happen. So if you don't have those, again, please let me know. But it is that the medication on the MAR matches the label on the blister pack, that the medications are stored correctly and nothing is expired, that the MAR is documented correctly, there are no holes, that circled initials have an APD code and reason explaining on the back of the MAR, that the first 3 doses of any new medication are documented on the back of the MAR for whether side effects were seen or not, that all med passers have signed their name and initials at least one time on every MAR page, not just the page they have given medications from, that only black or blue ink is used on the MAR, and blue is a distant second choice, that discontinued orders are clearly marked on the medication record and removed from the med box so that they cannot physically be given, that an ordering physician for each medication is listed on the order, that the diagnosis or reason for each medication is on both the prescription and the MAR, that allergies are listed on the MAR page. And remember that you must write the outcome of the first 3 doses of any new or changed medication order. I might have been on Valium 5 milligrams, but now I'm on 10. That's an increase. Am I sedated? Am I sleepy? Are there any side effects? Whether the drug goes up or the dosage goes down, or whether it's a completely new antibiotic and you're looking for skin rashes and things. It doesn't matter, the first 3 doses. Controlled medication counts are completed with no blank areas. There is a prescription for each medication, and each PRN medication meets the stipulated criteria on the MAR. There is a current side effect sheet, information sheet for each medication listed on the MAR on file in their med section. And that internal and externals are stored separately and on separate shelves very clearly. Controlled substances are under a double lock and key and stored separately for that individual, even if they're on other medications. If you only have one narcotic lockbox, then each individual's medication must be stored clearly and separately from another person's. Usually that's a Ziploc baggie with, or in some cases, a file folder in a locking file container with each individual clearly separated and their name on the baggie or on the file folder, so that you can't pick up my narcotic instead of Darren's narcotic and administer it to Darren. And so those are very, very clear guidelines. As managers, I want to remind you that there are 2 consent forms. They're only good for a year. The first one is from the physician or the physician's nurse practitioner, never in-house. It's not an in-house consent form, stating how the individual can take their medication. Are they fully capable of self-administering? Must they self-administer under the supervision of a med-trained staff, or are they mandatorily having to have their medications administered by the staff? And then there's the second consent form, which is the client themselves, if they're adjudicated competent, or their guardian, giving us consent to either supervise their self-administration or to fully administer medication. Only good for a year. The other required APD forms are a medication destruction form. That's all about the money. And they don't care if you're throwing away 5 Tylenol or if you're throwing away controlled substances. It takes 2 people, and you have to keep that record going. Most of us have it in the client MAR, but in some cases your home manager might have a drug destruction book. And that's okay if there's a tab section for each person. It's not a running record for the house. It's a running financial record of drug disposal for each individual person. So if you did have it in one book, then you have a tab section for myself, a tab section for Darren, a tab section for Leslie, a tab section for Tori, and it is then a running record. You don't have to do a page of paper for every medication. Maybe you haven't thrown anything away from me since 2015, but you're throwing away something now. APD can come in and check where the money's going, what Medicaid's paying for or not. Remember that it's just like us. Not everything is covered for an individual with their insurance company. So vitamins, so many of the medications they take, they're paying for just like you and I are when we stop at Walmart or anywhere else and total up that $65 bill on things. We're going, really? I'm taking that many vitamins and that much shampoo and special face cleaning and dandruff and treatments, and so it is the same thing. And clients don't have a lot of income. I don't think I've left anything out, but if I have, as you know, I'm on call 24/7, 365. Please be sure to call and ask me. We can always fix documentation, but it's easier to not document incorrectly to begin with. We do have to get better. We must improve how we are proofing our MARs to put into place at the beginning of every month. We must set ourselves, our individuals, and our med administration staff up for success. Each med validated staff must be validated for the routes that are given. When you get a prescription for a new route, we cannot just start it if you have no staff that have given that route of medication before. So for example, when we got eardrops, and we hadn't had any eardrops for several years, which meant that none of the current validations for the staff contained that route. The RPD did not call me, and when I happened to discover it, we went back and fixed that, but that's not how that's supposed to happen. So remember that if you get an unusual route or a route of medication, you need to go back and check your staff validations, which are mandatorily on file in the home, and see that you do indeed have that. If for some reason you miss something, give me a call. It's better to fix it late than not at all. But I need to remind you that that is one of your other responsibilities. I track the staff, I revalidate the staff, I don't let them expire. We all work so well together on that. But many of you are new RPDs, and you may not be aware that sometimes we get a little bit caught by surprise because we walk out of a doctor's office with a medication or a treatment, and the staff have not been validated by that route. For example, right now we have nobody on any kind of transdermal patch. No nicotine patches, no birth control patches, no Namenda patches for Alzheimer's. But we have in the past, but nobody's currently validated by that route whatsoever. Also be sure when you're desperate and you're pulling staff from another house, and you might have a route that they are not validated to give. Always let me know. And if you have certain staff that are open to going to different homes, let's make sure we have all of their routes done so that they can fill in the slots that you need filled in. So I hope this is helpful. I hope this helps you be more successful. Again, I know this is a great responsibility, and medications, chemicals going into individuals' bodies is a great responsibility. And as leaders, we need to set our staff up for maximum success. Call me if you need me, and thank you for your attention.